today? Wednesday, June 3rd. Comics. I got a little bit of a sinus infection coming on, so I'm chill. This is What is Yoga Part 2. Yesterday I was swearing a lot. I don't know where that was coming from, but I was swearing a lot. I had a friend reach out yesterday and basically, in a really nice, beautiful, candid, honest way, say that my recent social media posts about this place and about God and this place being a church was not what you thought this was going to be, basically, and kind of didn't align with her values, and that it was all good. She wants me to be happy and do my thing, and glad that I'm doing it, and it's just not for her. And it was great, it was beautiful, it's all good. And I thought about it for a while last night afterwards, and I went through this whole gamut of oh my God, am I starting this crazy religious cult thing? Is the messaging I'm putting out there too God oriented? Am I whatever? Am I doing the right thing or not? All these thoughts. And I texted her back, and it was all good. And I thought about it for a while, and I'm gonna post this later on Instagram. But yoga is inherently a spiritual practice by definition. And if there's not spirituality attached to it, then it's just exercise. It's just poses and breathing and stretching and whatever. But yoga is this immensely in-depth and rich and ancient practice and philosophy about what existence is, about what it means to be human, about what the mind is and what consciousness is, and what it means to have a body, a physical body, and what are the different parts of the physical body and the different subtle layers of the body energetically. And if you read the scriptures, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, Patanjali's sutras, they're all getting to one thing. They're all getting to this idea that we're human and we come into the world and we forget that we're connected to a higher power. We come in and we have what's called the ego consciousness. This sense of I, me, Sean Moore, and I'm navigating this material world and this existence as me. And all of the texts and all the practice basically say, no, that's not who you are at a fundamental level. That's how you operate in this world. And that's one layer of your psyche and your being. But actually, if you embark on a spiritual journey, or you have some type of maybe, traumatic event or something, you can pierce that ego and you can connect with something that's a deeper aspect of our being. It's a different type of intelligence. And it's the idea that we are actually connected to the creator of all things. And so there's all these different words for that, right? And God gets thrown around a lot, and different religions have different names for it. And yoga talks about that. It talks about I believe the word is Namarupa in Sanskrit, which is like different names for different forms. I gotta double check my philosophy on that, but this idea that ultimately there's one energy that has created everything, and it's manifest in all these different things. And the spiritual journey is to like not only intellectually understand that, but to do physical and mental and psychological and emotional practices that enable us to what's called self-realize that, to realize that. And realization is different than intellectual understanding. And like faith and belief is different than realization. And what is realization? Realization is knowing something in a deeper aspect of our being than our rational intellect. It's a truth that is deeper than just the rational mind. And so it's hard to describe, but it's kind of like, I describe it as like, how do you know you have to go to the bathroom? When you have to go to the bathroom, you don't think about it, you don't analyze it. You don't need to do an academic study on what neurons are firing that are giving you that urge to go to the bathroom. You just know you have to go to the bathroom, and you get up and you go to the bathroom. How do you know you love somebody? How do you know you have the butterflies and the feeling of excitement when you meet someone new? And there's a vibe there. How do I know how to raise my arm just like that? So easily, intuitively, without, again, like, imagine I had to understand all the different mechanisms that just happen biologically in my muscles and in my cells to, like, imagine I had to study how all that works before I could do that. Or the other example is like driving a car. If you drive a car, nobody in the history of the world has read the entire manual of a driver's manual of a car before they drive the car. You learn how to do the basics and the important things of how to drive a car. You learn the key things, the gas and the brakes and how to turn and the blinkers and all the buttons and the gear shift, right? But then how do you drive a car? You drive it with your awareness. You drive it with your intuition. You drive it with your perception of what's going on the road. An understanding of timing of yellow lights and green and red and who's merging this way and when you need to get, it's awareness. It's awareness, it's consciousness. And that's what yoga is about. Yoga deals with our awareness, our consciousness, our psyche, our soul. And the rational mind is part of that. But the point is, we start to go deeper into our psychological being when we practice yoga. And so Patanjali's sutras basically lay out a really scientific method for that. And so yoga is not this like total woo-woo, just fairies and there's a power out there that you can't understand, but it's working. No, it's like yoga is actually very scientific in many ways, and Patanjali's sutras are that, in that he lays out basically a whole framework for what the mind is, what the human mind is, and what practices are to quiet that mind. But basically, the entire essence of it in yoga is in the first 4 sutras, where he basically states that once you quiet the fluctuations of the mind, once you quiet the thoughts in your mind, you will connect with your true nature, which is joy and peace and bliss. That's it. That's like what the teaching is. And it's very complicated, right? And it's so incredibly difficult to do that. But that's the teaching in a nutshell. And that is what yoga calls God, or, you know, consciousness, awareness. Sat Chit Ananda is the Sanskrit word. Sat Chit Ananda, truth, consciousness, bliss, is what the teachings of yoga say is like our real nature. We're just humans, so we're not in that, like, ever, because otherwise we would just be God, you know, we'd just be chilling. Like, maybe really, really advanced, you know, yogis and monks, those are the people you see that are just like sitting there and chilling, and they've like realized that they're just like, you know, I'm here, I'm in it, I don't need anything else, I don't need to fill myself up with anything else, because I know I am like bliss already. And that's one track, right? There are some people and some yogis that's who they are, and their role and their dharma is to be that way, and to teach, and to be monks, and to sit in caves, you know, or shalas or whatever, and just like vibrate bliss into the world. That's cool, that's awesome. I'm not that. I don't want to be that. And so yoga talks about householders practicing yoga, and that's for like people like me and us that live in the real world, and we have to have jobs, we have to pay rent, and we aren't fully enlightened, so we're running around and we're still crushing on girls or guys, or getting upset that they don't text us back, you know, or you know, going out to the concert, or going out to this, or having a dinner meal, like living life. That's what we do. That's cool. And for the householder, for me, my practice in yoga is the transformation for me, and what the path I'm on and what I'm doing is becoming more aware of myself as I navigate life, and becoming more aware of like my psychological tics, right? And my blockages in my body from preventing me from being even more aligned with this universal energy. Healing my trauma, healing my psychological pain and trauma and sexual abuse and a fragmented psyche that makes me look for external validation from people, right? That makes me chase women. It's awareness. Yoga is about awareness, aware of who you are and what you're doing, and also awareness of your situation. And this idea that like you can make decisions based on what's going on in the present moment. So you're very present in a moment, and you can understand and assess like the energy in the room, the dynamics, what's good for you, what you need to do, how to move, and you're not just like being run by programming that you're not conscious of. And so that's a big part of what yoga is for me. And then this idea of like these terms of God, right? God, church, spirit, soul, universe, Brahman, Allah, Jesus, Christ consciousness, even religion, spirituality, like all these things have very weighted connotations to them based on an individual's experience with those things from growing up, right? So like, if you had a bad experience in church where you don't agree with like a religion's beliefs and teachings, like, you know, you're gonna be like, fuck that, I don't want that. And I'm the same way. I hated going to church growing up. I hated sitting there in the pews, listening to some boring shit, right, that I didn't care about. And I was so mad that I was missing my, you know, soccer game. But, you know, this is life. My parents took us to church because, you know, I don't think church is a total bad thing. I think I was just 8 years old and it was boring, right? And they wanted to, you know, instill some values and have community and all that, so it's all good. But people have a lot of trauma with that, especially if there's been abuse, right? Especially if there's been people in the church that have misinterpreted the teachings, or maybe just the teachings of that church are bad, you know, whether it's like, you know, not allowing homosexuals to be part of it, or saying that homosexuals are sin, or, you know, back in the day, minority groups, and not like, you know, it's like all these things that we can find wrong in religion and church. Yes, they're bad, and we're evolving from them. But like anything, a church or a yogashala or a temple, you know, or a spiritual center, it's what people make of it, and it's how we run it, and it's how we operate it, and it's the teachings that we talk about in it, right, and the energy and the vibe that we create. And so like these terms of church and God have really coded heavy weights, but also part of this practice and part of yoga, the beautiful part of yoga is that it's not a religion, and it's not a one size fits all. The beauty of yoga is you are practicing yoga, and everything about this practice is you, is for you, is about you, is your consciousness. It's your spiritual journey. It's your journey through your own life path, evolving your consciousness as you move through life. And that's the beauty of it. There's no like strict teachings. There's no, you know, 10 commandments here. I mean, you know, yoga has a bunch of, you know, teachings, the yamas and the niyamas about, you know, principles of what yoga is that are part of the practice. And that's, you know, they're like basic fundamentals of, you know, treating others with respect and nonviolence and taking care of ourselves. And, you know, but it's not, again, the yoga thing, it's not like do these, yoga's not do these things, or if you don't, you're a bad person and you're going to hell, right? Like the stereotypical religious shit. Yoga's not that at all. All yoga says is practice these things and see what happens. Do these practices, read some books, take some time to study it, contemplate about your life and what's going on, and see what happens. And if you like things, you keep it and you keep doing it. If you don't like things, you disregard them and don't do it. And the beauty of it is we're humans and we're evolving, and we change over time. Things that I didn't relate to or understand 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago are different for me now, especially over these last 6 years when I've had this crazy Kundalini energy awakening, which I'll make a different video about. But like, we're all evolving, we're all changing. And I do believe that if we're looking for a spiritual practice, which yoga is, that at some point we start to like, at some point we start to connect with a power that is higher, that we have a sense that there are powers that be, that are larger than us, forces in the universe that are larger than us, that we can align with and we can connect with, and those things are working for us. It's not control, and it's not good or bad person. It's forces that are helping us navigate this thing called life and existence, and helping us evolve our consciousness ultimately to the goal of love. I think that's real right now. Maybe it'll change, right? And it's hard to, it can be hard to think that way when there's so much evil and terrible things in the world, right? And that's the question of religion, the whole thing that I'm not a professor on about why evil exists, but like, I think, at least in my experience, how I got here, how I'm sitting here right now making this 20-minute video about what yoga is in this beautiful space, is because there were larger forces that guided me to this place. And the battle of the life was to navigate my ego and these forces, and like use my ego to act in the world and to make decisions and to, you know, build this place, and also at times surrender, to be like, oh yeah, I really wanted to do this place. My first thought was 5, 6 blocks away in a different a commercial space when I first moved to Red Hook, and all of a sudden I'm like, here, and this is way better. and it was just like how the flow of the universe happened. So that's yoga part 2 in a much more subtle, calm way than yesterday's video was. And I was laughing because I'm a little sick, so I'm like just kind of calm, but that's the beauty of yoga too. It's like yesterday was very masculine, right? Like it was like whatever was coming out of me was like, shut the fuck up, bring your humanity here. We all have shame and pain and fear and darkness, and yes, so do I. This is my whole, like, come, you're welcome here, right? This is why we do this practice. You know, that was like yesterday's energy for whatever reason. And today was just more like, this is what I think it is. So, all right, yoga, part 2.